One of the questions that came in from this community was, how do I let go of toxic people in my life with love? And I love the question and how it was even framed, that the with love part was added to that question. So good job for that. Think about somebody in your life who is toxic, who when you're around them, you feel exhausted, you feel drained. That every time you're together, they're complaining about something. Maybe it's the same thing over and over again, or there's always something going on wrong with them. And it's this toxic relationship, and you're ready to move on. Or maybe you have somebody in your life who you have a lot of resentment towards, where they hurt you, they betrayed you, and there's resentment, there's anger, and you're just ready to let it go. How do you do that? Let's talk about the power of resentment for a second and that toxicity. There's a great expression that goes like this: you can bury a stick, you can bury a rock, but you can't bury a worm. Eventually, that worm is going to find its way to the surface. And it's the same with our emotions. Our emotions are energy in motion, and we can't simply bury them because they will find a way to express themselves in our life in some way. They'll show up sometimes as physical dis-ease, where you're getting aches or pains or developing ulcers that will show up and express itself. Sometimes it expresses itself in your other relationships or with your finances. It will find a way to the surface. Why this is so important is when we're dealing with toxicity, when we're dealing with resentment with the people in our lives, if we don't move that energy, if we don't release that somehow, it's going to end up harming you in another way. And so if you've ever heard the expression that when we're resentful, it's like drinking poison, but expecting the other person to die. And so today we're talking about, how do we forgive? How do we let go? How do we move on from those relationships so that our energy is clear? So we're conduits to have greater relationships, greater love, greater connection in our life. Because the truth is, if we have resentment and that toxicity and that bitterness and that anger, and we've got a whole bunch of energy tied up with that, that energy isn't available for you to pursue your dreams. And so true forgiveness is when we let go of that for ourselves. An old, outdated idea of forgiveness is, well, they need to apologize. They need to say sorry. They need to acknowledge that they were wrong. And we're waiting for somebody else to do something so we can let it go. And we don't always have a choice about that, do we? And sometimes even when we get that apology, we don't feel any better. So true forgiveness actually has nothing to do with the other person, but everything to do with us, so that we're able to really move forward in a way that feels good to us. So we know it's important to forgive, to let go, that those toxic people in our life, they're impacting us. So how do we release them with love? One of the first steps is to acknowledge that we are all doing the best we can at our level of awareness. What does that mean? People in your life, those toxic people, they are showing up to life the only way they know how, based on their level of awareness right now, based on their upbringing, based on their education, based on impactful events in their life, based on the influences that they've had. They have a certain level of awareness, and they have patterns about how they show up to relationship and to their lives. Just like I have patterns about how I show up in my life, and so do you. And we're all doing the best we can at our level of awareness. And when we start to acknowledge that we're all doing the best we can, what happens is it makes it easier for us to go to compassion. That it's not personal, their behavior, their actions. It feels really personal, but it's actually not personal. They're doing the best they can. This doesn't mean their behavior is acceptable. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that we put ourselves in harm's way. But there's just this acknowledgement that, hey, they're doing them. They're doing them. They're doing all they know how to do. What I have a choice about is who do I want to be and how do I want to show up. So as we start to acknowledge that we're all doing the best we can, it separates that beingness from the behavior and again allows us to move to a state of compassion. And when we're in compassion, it makes forgiveness much easier. So acknowledging that is really one of the first steps. It's not easy and it takes some time to get there, but it's very, very powerful. The second piece to acknowledge is that they are here for your growth. So when you think about everybody shows up in your life for your growth. The Dalai Lama, I think, says this so beautifully. He says, we all have friends. We have friends that are easy to love. We have friends that are easy to forgive. And then we have our sacred friends. And if you look at the Dalai Lama's life and what happened for him and his country in Tibet and the atrocities that his people faced and continue to face, he says that the Chinese government, what they did in Tibet, they're my sacred friend. They're allowing my heart to grow and my heart to expand. Without them, my heart wouldn't have grown. So if you think about when we look at the people in our life that betray us, those toxic people, those tough relationships, when we can move to a place of acknowledgement, compassion, forgiveness, that takes a different level of spiritual fortitude. And as we get there with our sacred friends, our hearts grow. Our capacity for love, our capacity for compassion expands. So as you're thinking about those sacred friends in your life, the ones that are tough to love, tough to forgive, think about them as a gift. And as you do your forgiveness work with that relationship, your heart is expanding. Your capacity for love is expanding. And as your heart and your capacity for love expands, your openness to receive more abundance, more love, more full spectrum success also expands. So your sacred friends in your life are here for your growth, for your expansion. So when we acknowledge everyone's doing the best they can, that this is a sacred friend that will allow my heart to grow, can you see how now we start to hold these people in our life a little bit lighter? Where instead of fighting them and pushing against them, we're a little bit gentler with ourselves and with them. And then it's really about, who do I want to be? So as we're in a state of compassion, my invitation to you is to wish them well, to bless them, to wish them well. I believe at the core, we really want everybody in our life to be happy, to do well. It doesn't mean we want a physical relationship with them, but we wish them well on their journey. We wish them happiness. We wish them success. We wish them love as we do so for ourselves. And so every time that toxic relationship or that person comes to your mind, or maybe there's a physical interaction, to just bless them and wish them well. Again, it doesn't mean you want a physical relationship with them or you're going to be hanging out with them. But what you want is to be free in your own mind, so you're not holding on to that toxicity. So you're no longer drinking that poison. And so what I've prepared for you is a forgiveness meditation that you can download here and listen to help really let go of those sacred friends, to wish them well so that your heart can expand. So go ahead and download that free meditation to really help set down those toxic relationships in your life so you can be free to love, so that you can be free to really live a life you love living.